Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday and happy Mother's Day to all the very hardworking mothers out there. So today, I actually wanted to get online, and I'm sorry I haven't been available for the past couple weeks. I have been traveling a lot and doing some work and some very exciting projects that I'm sure we will talk about soon. But today I wanted to do a very special chat. Let's do a special chat, and this is focused around the concept of Mother's Day, which of course we are celebrating today. And with that, I want to talk about how to rebalance the perspective of the divine feminine and masculine in our community, in our society, and as an individual. I'm going to go over a couple of things today. I made some notes, so I'm going to go down the list of things that I want to cover with you guys today. The first thing is, of course, we're going to talk about what it means to be a mother in this society, in this day and age. Secondly, I want to talk about how to rebalance, how to come into this rebalancing of the divine feminine and masculine within an individual, within a couple, within a community, within a society, within a family. Those are things that we all need to learn. We are relearning how to live, how to be in this society. And so we're going to just chat a little bit about that. And I also want to talk about some things, some suggestions on how to better be a mother in this time of ascension or awakening, so to speak, without sounding too new agey per se. That we are actually having a rebirth on many different levels, and the birth is not just only of our own awakening and consciousness and being able to understand the new paradigm that we're living in, but also how to pass that on to our children, to our families. And being a mother is actually the most important job in our society right now. It is the most important. And I think that the more we understand the job that a mother has to their sibling, to their family, the more we can support and provide the support system and network that those mothers need. And, I want for a moment for you to take a second to consider the possibility that the job of a mother is not just solely for the woman. In reality, without taking away reverence to mothers, we are all having to come into the state of nurturing, of being a mother. And I think the representation of being a mother is that nurturing, that holding space for another organism. And ultimately, the mother helps and supports another organism to come into their highest expression. So from that perspective, in this time where we are experiencing a rebalancing of the divine feminine and masculine, in a time where we are welcoming the divine feminine back into our subconscious and how to rebalance those energies, it's almost as if we have to relearn how to embody that divine feminine and redefine it, because our concepts of the divine feminine are created by a system that has created a very fragmented perspective of these things for a very long time. And that filter is really the matrix that we live in, that has compartmentalized many things, that has separated, and that wants to have the destruction of all things that are divine, that are whole, that are in unity. And so it's our job coming into this three-dimensional reality, into this matrix, to learn how to reintegrate things. And I believe that that is also the job of consciousness, of infinite consciousness. As consciousness is becoming aware of itself, one of the aspects of becoming aware of itself is the integration of that information, which is extremely important. And truly, coming into that rebalancing of the divine feminine and masculine, we're talking about integration of incomplete concepts, perceptions that are out of balance. And for that, we need to understand what the two aspects of those energies are and how they manifest themselves in our relationships, in our lives, in the work that we're doing, in everything. Everything is mirroring, because the structure of this reality is that duality, right? That duality, that positive charge, negative charge, divine feminine and masculine. That is the basic architecture of our reality. And so it's up to us to understand very clearly what those two aspects are in order for us to harness those energies within ourselves. And this structure of reality is occurring almost as if, you know, it's like fractals, in a mode of a fractal, that we are embodying that down to our cellular level, and then beyond in a more larger cosmic perspective, everything has this divine feminine and masculine. And so we are consciousness exploring all aspects of those two realms in order to be able to integrate that information. How do we learn? How does consciousness become aware of itself? It becomes aware of itself through the integration of those experiences. And whether it takes lifetimes or one time to experience that, it's very important that all of us are taking the time to understand and comprehend what those two energies are within ourselves, not only for our health, but for our unions, our partnerships, our families, our communities, our society, and the overall rebalancing of this organism that we're calling matrix organism. So that being said, something I want to quickly talk about healing for a moment. You know, one of the things that I come across a lot every day in my work is dealing with people that, and all of us have this, that we are taking on the lessons that our parents are experiencing. And of course, we are a product of our environment. We talked about this many times in the past, how genetically the trauma and these experiences are being passed down genetically, and we're taking on that. We're living through those filtration systems because that's what we were born with. That's what we were surrounded with. And so what that means is that when we're faced with triggering situations that are, triggering the pain body of those experiences, painful experiences, whether it's a lack of love, a lack of support, a lack of, nurturing in our lives, men or women both experience this. There's a gap. There's a gap that we are needing to bridge. And that gap is the fact that we are not educated in what it means to be nurtured, to be loved. So that's something that we have to take the time to educate ourselves and understand. Because within this reality, because everything has been fragmented, our ability to really look at the true core, the true divine embodiment of those two energies has been skewed for us. And it's skewed because we see it through the filtration of fragmentation, and we see it through the filtration of fear. And when we are looking at things through the filtration of fear, we cannot connect with it. We cannot embody it. We don't feel that we have the ability to grasp and experience it as our own. And so from that perspective, one of the most important things that I'd like to note is embodiment of the divine feminine and the masculine, and being able to come into this nurturing self means that you need to know yourself on more than one level. So how do you understand what those two energies are, the feminine and masculine? You understand them by exploring them. And as consciousness, that's what we're here to do. So as you are feeling these emotions on a daily basis, my invitation to you is, number one, to feel your emotions, meet your emotions, understand what they are, because most of us spend our time trying to avoid feeling our emotions. We run away from the emotions. We're scared of the expression of the power that they may have over us. We have this incomplete perception that the emotions that we're going to be feeling are going to take us out of balance or out of control. And that's something that we've learned over time. And it's an incomplete perception that we are now coming into, that we need to learn how to master and feel our emotions at the very depth with full authenticity. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people ask me, what's one thing that you would tell us, or what's one thing that you would share as a tool to help us in this moment of ascension and this moment of self-discovery and healing? And that would be it, is to meet your emotions, to understand how you process the range of emotions and that you have. And the more that we feel simple emotions, whether it's even joy or fear or anger, we then understand how our body is processing and what the filtration systems are. What are the processes that we are utilizing to process these emotions? And what you're going to find when you kind of go into that information is that a lot of these processes are learned. They are learned from what your parents have displayed in your family, what your community is sharing with you, what your society, what your culture feels is the proper way of displaying those emotions. And all of those things are learned. So what we need to understand at the very core, hopefully when you get to the core of that, is how you want to process those emotions, what is your relationship with those emotions? And all of us are going to have different ways of processing and looking at those emotions, because we are a culmination of information that transcends just this physical dimension. Because our DNA is storing so much information, it's storing other experiences, and it is a live computing system that is accessing fragments of yourself that you are living through simultaneously. You're pulling from the fragments of yourself, which are again, I always reference our state, our consciousness, as we are in a web-like structure that we are at the center of, and all of these other points of the web that we are connected to are fragments of ourselves that are very connected to us. And so as we experience things, we have the ability of accessing those informations from there. That's what we are experiencing. That's where we gain our information from. More immediately, all of these fragments that are simultaneously experiencing through our present moment, which is here, me and you, are basically being recorded and stored within our DNA, number one. Number two, everything that we need in order to heal and reintegrate the fragments that are around us is here and now in this current lifetime. Okay, in this current lifetime is all of the storylines. So let's say the family that you chose to incarnate in, the network, the experiences that you're going to have, the traumas that you're experiencing, all of those things are parts of your consciousness that have chosen in order to come into the highest expression of itself. It's everything that your organism as a whole, as this entire web, requires in order to heal and integrate aspects of yourself. And there's a lot of work to be done there, because every experience, every exchange that we have in our life, either, every day, whether you're at work with your family, friends, whoever it is that you're with, is an opportunity for you to come into healing. So that's really, really important. And the importance there is to focus on, if you understand that, then you understand that you have the ability or the importance of coming into the present moment. When we're in the present, when we're conscious in the present moment, then you have the ability of catching and understanding triggers, the triggers that may trigger you at any time. Any subtle looks, energies, feelings that you're picking up from your environment are going to be triggers that are going to access information from your current lifetime, but are also there for you to access information that are also connecting you to fragments of yourself. And so our healing process is actually a very lengthy and deep one that we need to get started sooner than later. And the value in that is that you slowly integrate yourself by understanding the lessons that are required in those experiences and healing the body, rebalancing the incomplete perceptions that were caused by that trauma, by that pain, by that suffering, and reincorporating and rebalancing the fragments of yourself that are constantly cycling through that trauma, through that pain. So I'm going to give you an example, something that I see a lot in my healing sessions, because I work with a lot of women and men, and women that are mothers, and women that, of course, are daughters. And these two roles are so imperative to our society, to our community, because everything that we are taking on from our mother is what is going to dictate our perception for our life. And the influence that we take on energetically is filled with information that designs our way of being, designs our perception, how we're going to carry ourselves in our lives. And that's very important because it's going to take us all the way throughout our lives, through patterns of behavior that we've had through our lives, all the way to the womb. And so there's something here that I want to focus on. Being Mother's Day and having the opportunity to talk about the importance of being a mother and the role that a mother has in our society, um, from the perspective of balancing that positive and negative, that duality within them, the feminine and masculine, is so important, because when a mother is pregnant, when she is going through the gestation process of a child, the child is absorbing absolutely everything that the mother is experiencing. And it's not just what the mother is feeling and experiencing, but what is in their environment as well. Because again, we are all products of our environment. And so if a mother, for example, is going through a very stressful, painful situation that she isn't unsure about whether she should give birth to her child, this child, the first consciousness that comes in, that is imprinted in their DNA, is this program of fear of emergence, fear of being, fear of giving birth, for example. And so this person that is going to be born is already processing, and their perception of life, their perception of reality is already imprinted with that vibrational information. Okay, so this is incredibly important, because some of us that are here in the healing process feel, oh, we've handled absolutely everything, but there's always this thing that we are still feeling blocked. We're still feeling that we can't come into our highest expression. We can't, there's things limiting. There's still programs, and we're not sure where they came from, because perhaps seemingly we had a wonderful childhood, a wonderful life, great partners. But there's still something that feels unfinished. And the invitation is to look at how the birthing process was for you. There's a tremendous amount of trauma that comes from being within the womb, within the process of birthing. And that is something that we all need to take a moment to heal, to address, to understand, because you will be very surprised that there within those experiences lie the birth of a lot of these patterns and belief systems that we are not aware of. Okay. And so, of course, we are holding on to the information generationally through our ancestors, our mothers, our grandmothers, the great grandmothers. All of them are imprinting information. And as we know how DNA functions, it is the mother's DNA that is an aggregate photocopy that we are storing within the body. This is the mitochondrial DNA. And of course, that's there's much more to that with the information that's imprinted in that. But from the physical aspect, genetically, we are holding on to a lot of that information, of course, from the father as well. But these two play different roles in how we process traumas and how we play out those traumas in our everyday life. So then this takes us to the perspective, and the focus comes to being a mother in this new paradigm. How does knowing that help us become a better mother? And as a mother, the connection that you have with your children is so powerful. It is beyond the physical. It's a multidimensional connection that we have with them, that is emotional, it's energetic, it's psychic, it's telepathic. And that being said, there's a tremendous amount of responsibility and importance in the mother and how she is processing her emotions and how she is handling and expressing them when in presence of her children, and even when not, because the connection is so deep that we are imprinting an environment and creating the environment for our child to be raised. So, in our lives, in these matrix lives that we live, which we are rushing, we are running, we are creating such, we are trying to continue living in this survival mode. It's difficult for us to stop and to think about these important things about our emotion and how we are imprinting in our families, and how our influence is affecting the family and the nucleus. And it's really important that we think about that, because healing, when we heal ourselves as individuals, we're not only healing ourselves, but we're healing our network, we're healing our ancestral lineage, and we heal those around us that are closest to us. Our children also receive healing through our own integration of information. And the way that happens is that because we are so intricately connected, our networks that brought us together into this lifetime are basically united through kind of a magnetic resonance, that whatever information we're holding within our organism is a match vibrationally to the lessons that this other organism, which is your child, is in need of learning and understanding. And so in that sense, of course, they are going to be our biggest mirrors, our biggest teachers are our family. And that is because we have united in such a powerful way to process a lot of these, information, a lot of this trauma that we have had, that we're carrying with us. So as we are harnessing this new paradigm, per se, this new earth, this new world that a lot of people talk about, what we're talking about is the integration of incomplete truths, of incomplete perceptions. And that is across the board, with how we handle ourselves in our life, with how we express ourselves to each other, and our ability to access the divine feminine aspect within ourselves, which goes for men and women. And really, right now, we are all needing to come into this role of a mother, all of us, men and women, because we are at a moment in time where our conscious awareness of ourselves and the environment that we live in is required for us to hold space, not only for our own ascension, but for the ascension of our community, of our family. And these traits are very important. So really briefly, let's take a look at the traits of what the divine feminine represents. The divine feminine represents being, it represents surrender, intuition, it represents the abstract, patience, stillness, tranquility, nurturing, being receptive. It's the right brain activity. It's that creativity. Receiving, synthesizing, creativity, calm, soft, allowing, unity, silence. The masculine is doing, aggression, analytical, concrete, impatient, movement, striving, rushing, assertive, left brain, thrusting, organizing, logical, busy, hard, controlling, individuality, and expression. So this is a limited list, but just to get an idea, and of course, I invite you to really study this. And this is something that helped me early in my journey to understand what it meant, really. What was divine masculine? What is divine feminine? And how is it defined as? And, you can read a lot of articles on this and read a lot of books on this. But once you take a look at the basic understanding of what that is, and it's not to say that you're going to hold on to superficial definitions or descriptions of what they are, but how you will understand what the divine feminine and masculine is by connecting to nature. It is that very beautiful manifestation of and beautiful balance between the creation and movement. And this is something that is demonstrated to us within everything, within our entire reality, within nature, within our, the human body, down to the cellular level. The body is even divided within the feminine and masculine. Every organism has to, in order to come into a healthy balance, into that stasis, this organism has to balance that feminine and masculine. And it's not just the physical, it's also the emotional. The emotions are the tools that help us project into our reality, that help us create what we are experiencing every moment of our day. And so that being said, our understanding of the roles of those two aspects of reality are incredibly important for our healing. And further, as we are embodying these things, there are subtle aspects of the divine feminine that we are being called to present into our everyday life now more than ever. We talk about the divine feminine coming in now for healing. So what does that really mean? And for me, there's a couple things. I mean, first of all, I started this off by talking about having healthy relationships with our emotions. Having a relationship at all with your emotions means that you are taking the time to explore and understand your emotions and how you process them, how to feel them. We do not invest enough time in understanding how we experience emotions. And instead of understanding how humanistically, how organically we feel emotions, we are a product of our, basically indoctrination and indoctrined concepts of how emotions should be displayed. And I remember this to be very true, even growing up, that what I was taught in my family on how to behave, how to act, how to express an emotion was very different than what society was showing, and so that caused a kind of a disconnect, and the longing to want to fit in, to want to belong, was more prominent than being able to feel truly how to process that emotion from my perspective. And I think that happens to a lot of us. And within this process of self-discovery, we forget to learn how to take a moment to experience those emotions, because we are taught to be shame, to feel shame for feeling those emotions. So that has to change. And it has to change because when we create that voice vocally, when we provide the expression of that emotion, we learn how to direct that energy, that very important information that is literally creating and imprinting in this quantum field, in the quantum fabric around us. This is something that consciously, it's a part of becoming awakened, it's a part of becoming conscious. And the more that we take a moment to understand how we process and express that, the more we'll be able to direct and to understand how we are receiving and giving the exchange of those expressions. And it's very important as humans and as partners and as a society to be able to understand that. Now, one thing is learning how to feel your emotions. The second thing is being able to express them, to communicate them. And this communication, this, being able to express these emotions is very important. And it's an aspect of ourselves and our society that we have suppressed tremendously because of the shame, because of the imbalance in perception. So coming into authenticity, being okay with feeling the emotion and being able to express it, allows us to open space for other people to learn that it's okay to be able to express those emotions in a healthy way. If we don't express our emotions, we also are not going to be able to manage how we are balancing those emotions within us, releasing that, and allowing other people space for finding and identifying those emotions within themselves as well. That's very important. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about today in regards to this harnessing this maternal need, this holding this maternal space for a new way of being, a new way of living. It is really important that as men and women, thank you, Will. It's really important as men and women that by understanding the role of a mother, men, of course, have to embody that role in themselves. They have to be able to integrate that divine feminine within themselves in order to provide balance, not only for themselves, but for their family. So one of the things that I would like to suggest that I notice a lot in my healing sessions is mothers have to deal with a lot of pressure, and when a woman isn't fully embodying the integration of her information, what she's giving off to her children is going to be out of balance. And that's tremendous. That's a tremendous impact that we are putting not only for ourselves and our family, but our society. So there is a tremendous importance in teaching how to be mother, how to be parents in our society right now. And I think it's one of the things that we have to focus on as a collective in creating tools and education to help parents come in to this balanced state. But that work begins with our own work, with finding that balance within ourselves. So how do we do that? By number one, accessing all of the trauma-based programs and belief systems that are incomplete and imbalanced within ourselves. So doing the work, going into the memories, you can start with your week at the triggers, at the things that cause you pain, the things that take you out of balance in your everyday life. But also take the time to look at your family, because the way that you interact with your family will tell you right there. Within 1 week, I can help you identify many different blockages and programs that you're cycling through that are causing, in disharmony within your family nucleus. And because we are here to learn as consciousness becoming aware of itself, because we're in the matrix, all of our experiences are going to be made to help us come into the highest expression of ourselves. So we're going to be challenged many times. We're going to be tested and triggered in those aspects of ourselves. So please understand that awakening means that we are taking those opportunities. Every moment that your vibration goes down, every moment that you start feeling ill, out of balance, angry, upset, is an invitation to come into the highest expression of yourself. And I feel a very important call to help remind you that spiritual work and awakening and understanding and learning and educating yourself with all of these informations and the available education that is available to us online, on the internet, on YouTube, in books, all this valuable information that is available to us is great, but it means nothing if we can't integrate and live what we are learning. That applying that wisdom is very important. So, today, this week, how much of that wisdom have you applied? How much of that wisdom have you actually, how many times have you made yourself come into this state of awareness? How many times have you felt your emotions and processed them? How many times have you actually questioned, your interactions and the processes that you're going through? Because that's where the work is. And it's through those inquiries that you are then taken back to the origins of where these programs have originated for you. And that's where the gold is. That's where the information, that's where unlocking your ties and your connections to this matrix lies. Because all of these programs that we're cycling through are things that we're cycling as a collective. And so if we have these fantastic ideas and dreams about bringing our society into an elevated state of consciousness, this is where our focus should be at. And it starts in the home, it starts in your body, it starts in yourself. And then we have to carry that as an example to our children. because our children are receiving and recording absolutely everything that we are feeling, thinking, sensing. They are far more intuitive than we are realizing. And that is really important to understand, because when we talk about self-love, we're not talking about just an emotion of, the emotion of loving yourself or accepting yourself for your flaws. We're talking about loving your divine organism and the lesson that you're here to impart on those around us. And I think that it's time for us to take responsibility for the work that we have to do here with our community, with our society, with our family. That work is very important, and it starts with us. And it has to happen every moment of your day, not just when you remember to sit down and meditate, not just when you're doing that. Meditation is imperative to your understanding of your emotions, of discovering yourself, of going deeper, but this should be constant, okay? And if we want to create this new paradigm, this new way of living, this new society, we have to take responsibility and, do it in this moment. We can't just say, oh, I'm too busy, or, life is too stressful, I have to pay the bills. Yes, all of that is very true. But it doesn't take away from the fact that here in this moment, you can center yourself, you can ground yourself and explore that emotion for just half a second before you start to act, interact, react with your family, with your children. And as parents, this is so, so important. I really cannot stress how important this is. Every day, people that I work with, I hear the same thing. My mother wasn't there for me. My father wasn't there for me. I didn't have the support system I needed. And all of us, every single one of us have not learned what it means to love. We haven't learned what it means to be loved, to even feel love. We are starved of that love. And so today on Mother's Day, a very special thank you to all the mothers that work so hard in creating a nurturing environment for your families, and for the fathers that are also playing the role of the mother constantly. To all of us that need to come into this state of nurturing and holding space for our children, for our families, for our brothers and sisters to come in, because the ultimate expression of unconditional love is to allow others to come into their highest expression. And we don't really know what that looks like unless we do that ourselves. We don't really know what we're dealing with. We don't know how to connect with others, and don't even know how to identify what that feels like unless we go through that process. So please take the time to go through that process and understand that the change of this world is in that. It is in that. It's not in politics. It's not in, fighting anything, battling anything, whether it's, all of those things will rebalance themselves organically when we as individual organisms come into the highest expression of ourselves. And in our families, we have a tremendous responsibility with the cleanup that we're doing from the influence and from the information that we are patterning within our entire organism, in our structure, in our network. So the final thing is, how to be a mother in this matrix. This is something that I want to spend a time in creating a kind of program, because there's a lot to be said here. There's a lot that has to go in, and of course the healing starts with our own healing of our own traumas, of our own pain. If we don't understand how to heal our own pain, we're not going to understand how to connect or even recognize the pain in our children or the patterns that they are playing out from us. Right? It can be years that they can be grown-ups before we recognize the perceived damage. It's not damage or harm that we've imposed on them, pain that we have caused our children due to our imbalanced perceptions. So it's very important. And in a way, this should be our priority. There are many ways of abuse, of violence, of pain, of suffering in the world. But right now, we as a society are in deep pain, in deep trouble, in deep suffering. And the kind of pain and suffering that we are in is far greater than the illusion, the external illusion of wars that are being caused out there, of all of the destruction that we are being shown on, the news in our society, of the death, the famine, all of these horrible things that we see in our world around us are a projection, are a result of the pain that we are holding within our body, within our organism. And we share that pain. We share that pain as a collective. So if we want to heal our society, our community, we have to do it from the inside out. This is an inside job. We hear that. We hear there's been books written with that name. It's such a cliche, but we need to really understand that, okay? And the work has to be in the home. It has to be in this temple, in this body, every moment of your day. So that being said, as family, as nucleus, love yourself enough to do the work with yourself. And when you do the work, when you learn how to do it, when you understand how you process emotions, when you can identify your pain, your triggers, then you can show your children how to do that. You can show your family, your friends, those that you love. And if you don't show, at least you will be this enlightened fountain of unconditional love that is contagious, that will open space unconditionally for others to come into their higher self without intervening. Because there's also a misconception with what a mother is. A mother doesn't impose anything on anything else. She is fully aware of free will, and as mothers, all of us, it's our job to create a nurturing environment for any organism to be able to come into its full expression. And that's really the greatest, most powerful role that a mother can play. And we're not talking about gender here or the actual role of birthing. I'm talking about an energy that all of us can harness at any time, and it's important that we focus on harnessing that energy now for the nurturing and healing of this society. So that being said, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Marjiki says, love is loving them the way they are and the way they are not. And you're absolutely right. It's that unconditional love, right, that we're talking about. But let's try to apply this to everyone in our lives, okay? The people that harm us, the people that cause us pain, the people that cause us suffering, our coworkers, are, maybe looking at people through a state of compassion. And of course, this is not something that we have to impose on us. This is something that comes as a product of processing the pain within us. Okay, please understand that this kind of perception, this kind of thinking is not something that can be learned. It's something that has to be felt, processed, and experienced. Learning and applying wisdom is a result of experiencing this truth within your paradigm, within your reality. Marjiki says a mother's job is to observe and love. That's absolutely right. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I just wanted to do this really quick chat about this divine feminine and the importance of holding space in our community and our society and how to come into that. And there's much more to this topic that we'll talk about in the future. But for now, I want to wish all the beautiful mothers out there happy Mother's Day. Men and women that are holding space for your children, and invitation to yourself to come into the highest expression of yourself as a provider, as a healer, as a nurturer. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. All my love.